Ahoy there, listeners. Welcome back for another deep dive. And this time, we're diving into the world of pirates, specifically Blackbeard.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, we're using an episode from the American History Tellers podcast as our guide, and I think you guys are going to find this one pretty fascinating. It's not just about the swashbuckling and the treasure.
Right.
It's about like colonial power struggles, the legal systems, the choices that people made when the lines between right and wrong got a little blurry.
Yeah, I think Blackbeard's story really reveals the complexities of that whole romanticized image of pirates that we have.
Totally. So let's set the scene for everyone. It's the year 1700 and the English crown. They're trying to eliminate piracy. They passed this act called the Act for the More Effectual Suppression of Piracy,
Mhm.
which basically gives the colonies more power to prosecute pirates themselves.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine, picture yourself as a customs official in Charlestown and you're watching a pirate execution.
Oh, yeah.
It's a pretty stark reminder of the consequences of choosing the pirate's life.
It's interesting, though, because that act almost worked.
Really?
Yeah, but then Queen Anne's War ended in 1713. All of a sudden, you've got all these skilled sailors who are out of work.
Oh, so they almost created the problem they were trying to solve.
Yeah, kind of like they inadvertently created their own pirate problem.
Oh, wow, that's pretty wild. So it's into this world that Benjamin Hornigold enters the scene.
Okay.
He's a former privateer turned pirate, and he forms this gang, this infamous flying gang, and they set up shop in Nassau.
Right.
What was it about Nassau that made it such a hub for all these pirates?
Well, I mean, for those looking to strike it rich outside the law, it was perfect. It was a bustling port, tons of different cultures, and a place where, ambition and opportunity just kind of collided.
So picture this. You're in a crowded tavern in Nassau, surrounded by all these shady characters, right?
Oh, yeah.
In walks this ambitious, scrappy guy named Edward Thatch.
Yeah.
He wants to join Hornigold's crew. And nobody knows it yet, but this is the beginning of the legend of Blackbeard. What's interesting is we don't know that much about Thatch's early life.
Right. It's kind of a mystery, which I think adds to his mystique.
Totally.
Yeah.
But what we do know is that he rose through the ranks very quickly.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He was a skilled sailor and a fighter, and he had this charisma that people were just drawn to.
Yeah.
And within months, he was commanding his own ship. But Satch isn't the only fascinating character in Hornigold's fleet. There's also Speed Bonnet, who is known as the gentleman pirate?
The gentleman pirate.
The
Yeah.
gentleman pirate. This guy literally bought his way into the pirate life.
Oh, wow.
Oh, what a contrast, right?
Yeah.
You've got Thatch, this scrappy up-and-coming guy, and then you've got Bonnet, this wealthy landowner
Mhm.
who just decided to trade his comfortable life for adventure.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think, Bonnet's story kind of highlights all the different reasons why people were drawn to piracy. Some, were driven by poverty, some by circumstance, and then others, like Bonnet, they were searching for something more, maybe freedom or rejection of the rules of society.
Interesting. And so it seems like the Flying Gang had a very particular approach to piracy. It was more about intimidation and these quick raids rather than these drawn-out bloody battles.
Right.
They wanted to make a statement, grab the loot and get out, not necessarily cause a ton of harm. Like take their attack on the Betty, for example.
Okay.
They capture the ship, they drink all the wine, and then they sink it.
Wow. What a way to send a message.
Talk about making a statement.
Yeah. I mean, it really showcases Blackbeard's understanding of, psychological warfare.
Right.
The power of fear.
Right.
He used it to his advantage.
Yeah.
Sinking the Betty wasn't just about the cargo. It was about, building that reputation, building a legend that would precede him.
And it worked. But Blackbeard's ambition didn't stop there. In a move that would make him truly notorious, he captured this massive French slave ship called La Concorde.
Right.
He renamed it Queen Anne's Revenge, and this is where things really start to take off. Why was capturing this ship so significant?
Well, before he was a successful raider,
Mm-hmm.
but capturing the Queen Anne's Revenge transformed Blackbeard into a major force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
I mean, he now commanded this powerful vessel, a symbol of his growing influence and a tool to achieve his ambitions.
Yeah, and so with this new ship, Blackbeard's reputation just exploded. It even reached newspapers in Boston, although they spelled his name wrong, Teach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I guess spell check wasn't a thing back then. But this newfound fame meant that Blackbeard was attracting a lot more attention. Not all of it good.
Right, right. Well, the newspapers, they really played a huge role in spreading his legend. They described all his daring exploits, and they painted him as this figure who was both terrifying and captivating,
Hmm.
his fame spread like wildfire. He
Hmm.
became a celebrity, in a way.
Yeah. And a pretty fearsome one at that. Blackbeard continued to terrorize colonial ports all along the American coast. But his most audacious move, I think, has to do with the blockade of Charlestown in 1718. This wasn't just a raid, this was a full-on siege. What was Blackbeard hoping to achieve with this?
This was a major escalation.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about plunder. It was a demonstration of his power, a direct challenge to colonial authority. He held an entire city hostage and demanded a chest of medicine in exchange for the release of his captives.
Wow, can you imagine, like, you're a member of the Charlestown Council, you've got Blackbeard and his crew blockading your port, threatening your citizens. Do you give in to his demands?
Right.
What if this just encourages him to ask for even more later on? I mean,
Yeah.
it must have been just a terrifying dilemma for
Oh,
them.
for sure, for sure. It was a high-stakes gamble for everybody involved.
Yeah.
Blackbeard was really pushing the boundaries, testing the limits of colonial power. And for Charlestown, it was a stark reminder of just how vulnerable they really were.
So they actually gave him the medicine. That's crazy. Blackbeard got what he wanted and sailed away, leaving Charlestown unharmed. But then instead of heading north like people thought he would, he sets course for North Carolina. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's super interesting. It could mean he was thinking ahead. North Carolina was known for being a little bit easier on pirates. Maybe he was hoping to get a pardon, escape the heat from the authorities.
So maybe he was looking for a way out, but could a guy like Blackbeard really just settle down, live a quiet life?
I mean, who knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to picture Blackbeard, the terrifying pirate captain, as Blackbeard, the peaceful retiree.
Mm.
But some accounts say he got a pardon, tried to live a normal life in Bath. Even rumors he got married, tried to
Yeah.
blend in.
Wow, almost too good to be true. Like, did he really think he could erase his past and become, like, a model citizen?
Well, some people definitely didn't buy it. Lieutenant Governor Alexander Spotswood of Virginia, he was furious.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he saw North Carolina harboring Blackbeard as a direct threat to his colony, like a personal insult. Right, you can see how piracy got tangled up in these power struggles between the colonies.
So Blackbeard was a pawn in a bigger game. But even if he was trying to go straight, the authorities weren't about to let him forget who he was. Spotswood, he was determined to take Blackbeard down. He used a former crew member's testimony to find Blackbeard, and then, get this, he organized a secret invasion of North Carolina to capture him. What a grudge.
Wow, talk about commitment. I mean, it really shows how much Spotswood wanted to wipe out piracy, even if it meant going to extremes, maybe even overstepping his authority. Blackbeard to him wasn't just a criminal. He represented this lawlessness, a challenge to his power.
Okay, but let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about Blackbeard the man, the legend. We've got all these images in our heads. The
Right.
long black beard, those fierce eyes, the lit fuses in his hair. Was it all an act? Just a way to scare his enemies?
Oh, he definitely cultivated that fearsome image. All the descriptions of him, especially from the people who were there during the attack on the Margaret, they emphasize how imposing he was, how menacing. His look, it was like a weapon, a way to instill fear before even starting a fight.
So he was building his brand, the Blackbeard persona, this almost mythical figure. But was there more to him than just the theatrics?
Well, some say he was actually more practical than bloodthirsty. There are stories about him sparing prisoners, not being unnecessarily violent. Like that time he and Hornigold raided a British ship. They took the supplies they needed but left the crew unharmed.
So maybe he wasn't always the ruthless monster we imagine, but then you have those other times, like when he marooned more than 100 of his own men on a deserted island after intentionally running 2 of his ships aground. That's cold, even for a pirate.
Yeah, no, that's pretty harsh. Even Stede Bonnet, his former partner, called him out on it, said it was cruel and totally inexcusable. It's this back and forth that makes Blackbeard so interesting. He could be surprisingly merciful sometimes, but also capable of incredible brutality.
Like there are 2 Blackbeards. The smart strategist who'd rather avoid bloodshed and the ruthless pirate who'll do anything to get what he wants. It's what makes his story so fascinating, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes you question things. It forces you to think about the gray areas in history and, human nature. Was Blackbeard just a product of his time, a guy who took advantage of a changing world?
Mm-hmm.
Or was there something darker driving him, a ruthlessness that went beyond circumstance?
These are the questions that keep historians and, anyone who's into pirates totally hooked. And as we head into the last part of Blackbeard's story, I'm curious, what part of him stands out to you the most? Do you see him as a villain, a product of his environment, or something else entirely?
It's amazing to me how Blackbeard's story didn't end when he died. It's almost like his legend became even bigger after he was gone.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's
Yeah.
like he became this this larger-than-life figure, like a myth, a legend. His story just took on a life of its own.
And a lot of that has to do with this book, A General History of the Pirates, that came out just a few years after his death.
Mhm.
That book really cemented his place in pop culture.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is the author, this mysterious guy who only went by Charles Johnson, he mixed fact and fiction.
Mm.
So he created this kind of embellished version of Blackbeard's adventures. It's interesting how Charles Johnson really tapped into this public fascination with pirates. He presented Blackbeard as this almost superhuman figure,
Yeah.
a cunning strategist, a master of intimidation, the ultimate symbol of that rebellious spirit of the golden age of piracy.
Yeah, like one of those based on a true story movies where they spice things up a bit. But with Blackbeard, the truth was already pretty wild. Even with the embellishments, his story still captures our imaginations centuries later. Why do you think that is?
I think it speaks to that universal fascination with rebellion, with people who defy authority, who live by their own rules. Blackbeard, he represents this rejection of societal norms, this desire for freedom, for adventure.
He's the ultimate anti-establishment figure, right? He
Right.
basically said screw the rules and carved out his own path in this rapidly changing world. There's something about that that's just so appealing, even if we don't agree with everything he did.
I agree. And there's also that allure of the unknown, the open sea, the thrill of the chase, the promise of untold riches. It feeds into that sense of adventure that we all have, that desire to escape the ordinary.
And don't forget the mystery. We still don't know everything about Blackbeard. Where is he really born? What led him to piracy in the first place? Was there really buried treasure? All these unanswered questions, they keep us guessing. They fuel the legend.
It's true.
Hmm.
Those gaps in the historical record, they let us fill in the blanks with our own interpretations.
Right.
Blackbeard becomes this empty canvas that we can project our own ideas onto. Ideas about freedom, rebellion, and the pursuit of fortune.
So even though he's been gone for hundreds of years, Blackbeard's story is still being written, in a way. Each generation, they reinterpret him, they find new meaning in his life, in his legacy. He's a timeless figure that's constantly changing.
And that's what makes history so amazing. It's not just a bunch of dates and facts. It's a living, breathing story that continues to shape how we see ourselves and the world we live in.
Blackbeard may have met his end over 300 years ago, but he still challenges us, intrigues us, reminds us how complex the human experience really is.
This deep dive, it's been about so much more than just a pirate. It's been an exploration of power, of justice, of this basic human desire for freedom and adventure. And I really hope we keep exploring, read more about the golden age of piracy, dive into those firsthand accounts, the stories from the people who lived through it, and most importantly, question your own assumptions, embrace the complexity of it all.
There's a whole world of discovery out there just waiting to be explored. Who knows? Maybe you'll uncover some hidden treasures of your own along the way. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Blackbeard. Until next time, fair winds and following seas.